It's 8 o'clock. This is the UK Tonight. Our top story: a 15-year-old boy stabbed to death at school in Sheffield. It happened in the middle of the school day, with another boy, also 15, arrested on suspicion of murder. Police have asked people not to speculate on what happened or share content online. Also ahead, the crippling impact of tool theft on tradespeople's businesses and lives. More than 44,000 tool thefts were reported in 2023, and that number is on the rise. Tradespeople gathering in Westminster today, calling for stricter laws to protect their livelihoods. Plus, the man with Parkinson's who says he feels like he's been cured. Such is the impact of a groundbreaking new treatment. I'll speak to him and his neurosurgeon. And I'm going to be joined by the pub landlady who offered punters a free pint every time Nottingham Forest scored at the weekend, only for the team to win 7-0. All that to come and much more on the UK Tonight. Well, we start the programme with another shocking death of a child due to knife crime in the UK. A 15-year-old boy has died after he was stabbed at school in Sheffield. It happened at All Saints Catholic High School just after 12 o'clock in the middle of the school day. The school went into lockdown after the incident. It's second in a week, the first because of threats of physical violence amongst students.
Although we are in the early stages of our inquiries, we are working at pace to build a full picture of how this tragedy has unfolded. We urge you to be mindful that there are loved ones at the centre of this, and they are grieving the profound loss of a teenage boy in the most devastating of circumstances. We would therefore ask you to avoid speculation and the sharing of online content which could be distressing to them and detrimental to our investigation.
Well, a truly distressing story. Our North of England correspondent Charlotte Leeming is following it for us from Sheffield. Charlotte, what do we know at this stage?
Well, yeah, very distressing and very upsetting and so poignant here tonight, because earlier on there was the cordon, there were the sirens, there were emergency services here, which was upsetting enough to witness, particularly for parents and carers who have children here. But then in the last couple of hours, that cordon was lifted, and then just the one police car here. And then people started to just bring balloons, messages, cards, light candles, and a really poignant sense that this was a teenage boy who came to school this Monday morning, like millions of others across the UK, but sadly would never return to his family. You know, we know that the police and paramedics were called here this lunchtime to the reports of a stabbing, and they came, but they couldn't save that young boy's life. And the head teacher, we know, sent out a message last week on the 29th of January saying there was a lockdown then. This was to do with a small group of students, it said, where threats were made of physical violence. So people have been speculating, as you can imagine, online, wondering if this is a connection to what happened today. Police have said, please don't speculate, let us get on with our investigation. It's in its very early stages. This afternoon, though, that we did hear from the Education Secretary. She posted a message on social media. She said, I'm devastated to hear a boy has died after a stabbing at a school in Sheffield. My heart goes out to his family and his friends and the whole school community. We're in contact with the council and the school to offer support. We've also heard tonight the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, he's in Brussels. He responded when asked about this tragedy. He said his thoughts as a Prime Minister and a father are with the family. Now, this Catholic school is part of an academy trust, and they have said they're going to support as much as they can the families involved, the pupils involved. They want to offer counselling, anything they can to try and support people, because another tragedy, as you say, at another school involving crime and the death of a pupil and a stabbing. The police have asked, as I said, please don't speculate about this. Let them do their investigation. And just tonight, forensics have come back in to this building at the front of the school. So investigations going on well into the night. And the focus of the investigation now is the 15-year-old in custody who is being questioned on suspicion of murder.
Charlotte, thank you. Charlotte Leeming there for us in Sheffield tonight. Meanwhile, a 14-year-old schoolgirl has been found guilty of attempted murder. This is after attacking 2 teachers and another pupil at a school in South Wales. CCTV footage of the incident has now been released. It shows the pupil attacking assistant head teacher Fiona Elias, while fellow teacher Liz Hopkin attempts to restrain her. After stabbing both teachers, the girl moved on to attack another pupil before she was restrained by staff. The incident took place in Ammanford in April last year. All three victims required hospital treatment. One of the teachers speaking outside court today.
No one wants to see a teenager being found guilty of and punished for attempted murder. However, the incident that took place on the 24th of April was totally unacceptable. Today's guilty verdict is not just for me, but for all teachers everywhere. No member of school staff should ever feel fearful for their own safety, merely for carrying out their duties. From here on, I would like to invite the local authority and the Welsh Assembly Government to meet with me, as I want to ensure that no member of staff goes through what Liz and I went through on the 24th of April last year.
Now to a word that you've probably heard repeatedly over the past few days: tariffs. President Trump calls it his favourite word, and he's threatened Canada, Mexico, the EU and the UK with tariffs as he tries to tackle America's trade deficit. Speaking today, Sir Keir Starmer said he wants open and strong trading relations with America after this warning from President Trump over the weekend.
The UK is way out of line, and we'll see the UK, but European Union is really out of line. UK is out of line, but I'm sure that one, I think that one can be worked out. But the European Union it's an atrocity, what they've done.
Prime Minister, President Trump says tariffs on the EU are coming. He hasn't ruled out tariffs on the UK. Are you worried about that?
It's early days. And I think what's really important is open and strong trading relations. And that's been the basis of my discussions with President Trump. And I know that intense US-EU discussions are planned.
Our political editor Beth Rigby asking the question there. But for all President Trump's words for the cameras, the UK could actually be in the strongest position out of all of America's economic partners. To explain why, here's our economics and data editor, Ed Conway.
Let me start with a slightly provocative question. What if the UK has almost unwittingly found itself in about the best position it could be vis-à-vis Donald Trump and his tariffs, and done it basically by mistake? I know that sounds like it's slightly strange, but let me just talk you through it. And the first thing you really need to know about this is that if there's one thing Donald Trump really hates, it is trade deficits. What's a deficit? It's when your imports are much bigger than your exports, and that's certainly the case for the United States. There you can see the imports, they are much bigger than the exports, and as a result, there is that deficit. And if you break it down, so look at where are those goods actually coming from or indeed going to, look, when it comes to imports, the majority of them, pretty much half actually when you look at this, nearly half, come from Canada, Mexico and China. So no surprises as to whether those were the countries which we're focused on. But here's what's interesting, OK? So now look at other countries and their deficits with the US. These bars are showing you how much the deficits are with the US. Anything in this kind of pink territory means the US does have a deficit with them. So look, there's China, there's the EU, there's Mexico, and Canada is somewhere there as well. Anything in the blue means there is no deficit with the US. And these are the countries that Donald Trump is really focusing on. And here's why this matters for the UK. First of all, obviously, as we all know, the UK is no longer part of the EU. So if there were to be tariffs on the EU, that wouldn't directly affect the UK. Secondly, well, look where the UK is. It's over here. And there is, at least according to the US figures, there is no deficit with the UK. Worth saying, though, OK, so those are the US figures. If you look at the UK's kind of same version of the same statistic, actually the UK bar is a little bit further down. And in fact, it's slightly in that negative territory. But even so, it's relatively small. So Donald Trump won't be looking at the UK and saying, gosh, that deficit is too big. The other reason why the UK might well be in this good position is that while other countries around the world, including the US, Canada, India, Turkey, many other countries have already imposed extra tariffs on China, the UK so far has not. These are tariffs on electric vehicles. And so in the event of a trade negotiation, the UK could just say, look, maybe will actually impose those tariffs. So for all of those reasons, actually, Britain isn't in that bad a position to do a deal potentially with the US, to negotiate, or maybe to be that bridge with Europe. But of course, with Donald Trump, you really just never know.
So, what might all of this mean for you? Tonight, I'm joined by the financial influencer, Abigail Foster. Hello, Abigail.
Hello.
So, Donald Trump talks about tariffs, and it's all quite, big stuff. We're talking macro, aren't we?
Yes.
What does it mean for people sitting at home tonight? We should probably start by, talking about what a tariff is.
Yeah.
We used to talk about taxes, aren't we?
We are, and it is a tax. So a tariff is a tax imposed by one country on goods and services imported from another. So the reason it's been in the news with Trump is because Trump quite likes a tariff, and, in his last term, he wanted to introduce more tariffs, and this term he's come in and said, right, China, Mexico, Canada. There's been some delays on others, but Canada especially has been one that they've started to implement. And it means that the goods and services coming from those countries are going to be more expensive to those internally. And you've heard Trump say, buy from your local, sources, buy from the US. And then you've heard
America first.
America first. And Trudeau's come out in Canada and said the same, buy Canada. What happens, what we're worried about is the trade war impact of it. One trade tariff is, one thing, but the knock-on impacts of then Canada coming back and saying, fine, we're going to tax you, and then we're going to tax you more. And it makes everything far more expensive, and also the global economy a bit shaky.
Yeah. That's it on a global level, but what does it mean day to day for people's lives? Like the ripple effects of tariffs, how far-reaching is it? Where can we see an impact, do you think?
We can see a global impact. From the US, even Trump mentioning it being an EU tariff against US products can then shoot the prices of EU products up because they have to find that recoup of costs somewhere if fewer products are going to be sold in the US because they're more expensive. And then that has a knock-on effect to the UK because EU products, we trade a lot with the EU, and if they become more expensive, our cost of products go up. We don't produce everything in the UK, we have to import some stuff. So yeah, I would say the knock-on impact for that really is the price of everything rising, which obviously in the cost of living, quite difficult to kind of show, but it's the ripple impact of the US. There's that common phrase, the US sneezes and the rest of the world catches a cold, and it's coming alongside this tariff as well.
And what about things like the Bank of England, the base rate decision coming up again? People sort of take their mortgage interest rate as an indication of, how these kind of big decisions can impact them. Will it have an effect on things like, rate of borrowing and things like that for finance, mortgages?
It can do. The most standard things that impact the Bank of England base rate, which we'll see announced again on Thursday, is things like inflation and other UK sources. But there is also something to be said that Andrew Bailey and his Monetary Policy Committee members are going to be looking at global impacts. If they can see something coming on the line, is it beneficial to remain cautious? And for that, it might mean that then the base rate stays flat, which a lot of people are hoping it's going to start coming down. The next rate after that might be around the time of the changes, the spring budget. So hopefully we might see a drop so that it helps people in their cost of living this year, because a base rate drop would hopefully mean a drop in mortgage rates. But it's hard to say with so much turmoil going on in the markets.
You mentioned the spring budget coming up as a key date for the Chancellor, but she did give a big speech the other week about growth, and you got into a room with her and a number of other financial educators to get a chance to talk to her about growth, because the thing about that speech was, again, it's all sort of macro level things, people sitting at home on sofas, maybe not as fancy as that one, but just thinking, what kind of growth am I going to see? What's going to impact my day-to-day life? What did you get from her in that meeting? Yeah,
so my questions were all about the next generation, because for me, I feel like there was a lot that came out in her autumn statement about businesses and, national insurance going up, stamp duty we're going to be seeing, increasing for many, many people come April. But what about the next generation? How are we increasing growth for our next generation? And in her speech, the Plan for Growth speech and the speech she made on Wednesday, we talked about, or Rachel Reeves spoke about the expansion of Heathrow to try and see some increased investment into the UK in the future. She talked about bringing together Oxford and Cambridge. She talked about some changes up in the north that are really important. Connecting those northern cities is so important in today's economy for the next generation, because, living in central London is starting to become unaffordable for many young people. And if you move to awesome cities like Manchester, you want to be able to feel like you can move
Have the same
across the north.
opportunities,
Exactly. So, yeah, the speech was interesting. Do I think it went far enough? No. I think we need to see more in March. We need to see some actual adjustments that will help us as the next generation.
Roll on the spring budget. OK, Abigail, really good to see Abigail Foster there, financial educator and influencer. Thank you. Now, the judge who sent former soldier Daniel Khalif to prison today for spying for Iran described him as an immature, uninformed attention seeker. Khalif, who escaped from Wandsworth Prison in September 2023, collected sensitive information, including the names of SAS personnel, and passed it on to Tehran. And sentencing him today to more than 14 years in prison, Mrs Justice Chima Grubb didn't hold back.
Stand up, Daniel Khalif. When you joined the army as a young man, you had the makings of an exemplary soldier. However, through the repeated violation of your oath of service, you showed yourself to be instead a dangerous fool. The only sentence open to me is one of immediate custody. Anyone who is prepared to betray his country and subject serving soldiers to an increased risk of harm must be punished.
Our correspondent Sadia Chowdhury is at Belmarsh Prison in South East London for us tonight. Sadia.
Well, if he is an attention seeker, then Daniel Khalif certainly has what he wanted. He starts his prison sentence here at Belmarsh Prison tonight as a bit of a notorious figure. Who can forget his somewhat spectacular prison escape when he clung onto the underside of a food delivery truck to escape the Category B prison in Wandsworth. That led to a nationwide manhunt that lasted days. Now, at the time, Khalif was on remand awaiting trial. He was a British soldier accused of exposing UK military personnel to serious harm. Prosecutors argued that he'd collected sensitive information and passed it to Iranian agents. In court during his trial, Daniel Khalif said actually what he was a double agent, that he wanted to work for UK intelligence authorities instead. But the prosecution claim was that he had passed on documents to the Iranians, both real documents and fake documents. And crucially, the very serious offence of passing the names of UK special forces over to them, and that he had promised the Iranians that he would stay undercover in the British Army for 25 plus years. Well, in sentencing, the judge said that to join the army at such a young age is an impressive act of commitment. What a shame, she said, that after training you spent more than 2 years in contact with agents from Iran, a country which she described as not aligned with the UK and at times threatens UK interests. She called Daniel Khalif an unauthorised, unqualified and uninformed junior soldier who enjoyed the notoriety, she said, of his prison escape because he didn't want to just be a number. And then she gave him the numbers: 14 years and 3 months in prison. And because of the severity of the crime, because he was a serving British soldier who was entrusted with the nation's security and that he'd used that in order to make contact with an enemy state, she made the unusual step of saying that the sentence needs to be served consecutively. So no doubt tonight, as he begins his sentence, the prisoner who made a name for himself by escaping prisoner will be kept under very close watch.
Sadia, thank you. Sadia Chowdhury in South East London for us tonight. Still to come on the UK tonight, tradespeople call for stricter laws to protect their livelihoods. I'll be speaking to a gas engineer who had more than £8,000 worth of tools stolen from his van. Also ahead, the Education Secretary defends plans to overhaul Ofsted inspections as unions call the changes bewildering. And I'll speak to the Nottingham pub landlady who scored a bit of an own goal with her free pint offer for punters.
Over there, to your left. There have been airstrikes every day. Hezbollah are very sensitive about us showing any pictures, and we're being hurried away right now. It felt akin to riding into some sort of Armageddon. Many other areas have been hit badly. There are shells coming in every few minutes. Hear that whistle and that crunch? We know that they're coming from the south of the city, where there's a column of Russian armoury. I'm Alex Crawford and I'm Sky's special correspondent based in Istanbul. It's trying to hit us. That's it. It got us then. There's a lot of action going on. A lot of heat still.
We were the first journalists and the only outsiders to reach the site of the attack several weeks after it happened.
We found from the missile.
It's very difficult to see what around here could be conceived of as a legitimate military target. Only about half a mile from the Turkish coast, a boat seriously overcrowded. This is one of the most severe viruses in the world. Clearly not had very much to eat at all, a lot of them extremely thin and very frail. Look at that sheet of flames, and that has happened within minutes, and now it's coming from both sides, and it's moving this way.
The world's largest falls now down to a trickle in places.
I can't imagine how much plastic is lying at the bottom of this huge lake. Oh! Getting up close and personal with a rhino.
This is what makes the job so fantastic.
Weeknights on Sky News.
This is your chance. Tell people. Welcome to the Politics Hub.
Our police force has apologised.
If you want to find out about Grimsby, you come to the docks. I'm live in Jerusalem.
Are you not concerned that that could lead to all-out war?
Hello there, good evening. There are fears of an upsurge in violence. What's at stake here?
You are watching the press preview, a first look at the front pages as they arrive.
Now, hundreds of tradespeople descended on Westminster earlier today to call for urgent action on tool theft. Founder of Trades United, gas engineer Shoaib Awan, organised this protest after more than £8,000 worth of tools were stolen from his van. Tradespeople want the government to introduce harsher penalties on van thieves. Shoaib joins us now. Good to see you. It's been a busy day for you, so thank you for coming into the studio.
Thank you,
Dan. We've all seen vans with signs on them saying no tools left in this van overnight, so there's a sense that this goes on, but people probably have no idea of the scale. Just how big a problem is this in your profession?
Well, at the moment, the rate that is happening is every 12 minutes a van gets broken into. And, you know, it's not just the tools that they steal, it goes a lot deeper than that. So the damage that they're causing to the vans now. So no matter how much security you put on your vans, they are ripping these doors off, cutting doors. They're absolutely brutal. So you can imagine, as a tradesperson, you go into a job and your focus is always on your van. We're refusing jobs. We don't go to jobs. If you can't see your van, I honestly refuse that job. I would rather get a £60 fine on a double yellow line than go to a job where I can't see my van. It's got to that stage. You know, when I got broken, when I lost everything, I think for about 3 weeks I lost my sleep because I was literally, any sound, I was just looking out the window. I was having another go at my van. And that's got to stop. I really don't know how this is acceptable in this country. I mean, think about it, the scale of theft in general. Where is it going, right? Vans are getting broken into, cars are getting stolen, DPD vans get broken into, all the parcels got stolen over Christmas. You saw that from the Amazon vans. Phones are getting snatched, bikes are getting snatched, and it's scary because now the best excuse the police say, or the government gives is, here's a crime reference number, call your insurance. And it's all done over the phone. They don't even visit come and see what they've done to your van anymore.
Is that what happened to you? Because you had £8,000 worth of equipment taken out of your van.
That's
the
correct.
side was ripped off of your van, so you've lost tools.
Yeah.
Your van's out of action. You can't work because you haven't got any tools.
That's correct.
Talk to me about the ripple effect of this.
It's a lot. It's not... Look, our jobs is physical and mental. The effect that it has, the mental side of it, is incredible. It's just... There's so many implications. I mean, you just can't even think, like, how can this be acceptable? You lost your job. Your customers are waiting. If you're trying to go through your insurance, you've got to imagine that's a very slow process. You've got to provide receipts. There's a long process to even get that, but you've got to get back to work tomorrow. So you will go out and you buy tools again and replace them. So it's always a financial cost. It's a mental cost. It's just... It's got to stop.
So this feeds into a bigger picture. We talk about it a lot on the UK Tonight, whether, you know, it's shoplifting or tool theft, theft just not being taken seriously. by police. What do you want the government to do? What were you calling for in Westminster? What would help better protect your livelihood?
Two things. Number one, car boot sales, they need to be looked at. We've visited so many car boot sales.
Because is that where these tools end up?
That's correct. We've visited over 50 car boot sales. We've got footage of it. We know where these tools are coming from. Tradespeople don't sell their tools. The only reason they'll sell the tools if they either get an upgrade, if it's a corded, they go for a battery option.
They're certainly not selling them down the
There is no need. If you go to a car boot sale, you see the same drill, 50 of them in a line, 50 batteries, the same, you know, chargers. You name it, it's there at the car boot sale. The car boot sales are not regulated. The only thing you've got to do is you've got to pay £10 on the door, no registration, nothing. You go there, you throw a tarpaulin and you throw all your tools on there and you'll get rid of it for cash. I don't understand. I've seen the same faces on the car boot sale on a Monday, a Wednesday and a Friday and even a Sunday. Car boot sales used to be only around on a Sunday. They are opening up everywhere. You know, they are selling everything that shouldn't be in a car boot sale. It's more of a market now.
You talked about the impact on this, on, you know, your mental health, your job. I imagine it has an effect on your family as well. If you can't work, it's no good for anyone. So you want car boots to be better regulated.
And also the law around theft. When it comes to a tradesperson, man, you've got to remember, these are like our offices. It's like we work from them, we eat in them, because we're always on the road on these vans. They are breaking into them during the day, not even at night. So while you're in a job, you come back out and they've cleared you all out. As a gas engineer, you can imagine, our tools are specialist tools, they're expensive. So we've got your gas analyzer, you've got your power flash machine, you've got thermal imaging camera, then you've got all these power tools that we need for these jobs. One of those items, like an analyzer, could be anything between £1,000 to £2,000. Your power flash machine's around about £2,000. Then you've got your imaging camera, it's £1,500. The power tools, there's no value. There is so much that you lose. And then you've got to replace it over and over again. You know, tradespeople work, they're so hard out there to get a better life for themselves, their kids, their family. We're exactly the same as everyone who works in an office. But there's no respect shown from the government towards this crime. And honestly, it's shameful that all the focus is always on zero emissions, all this kind of stuff. Even to that, we changed our vans and we spent £23,000 on a new van. My old van was absolutely perfect, there's nothing wrong with it. They scrapped that, got the new van, and then they drilled holes, broke my doors, and then it just carries on. It doesn't stop from there. Insurance goes up for how many years? Because once you've made a claim, you come to a point where they don't even want to insure you anymore.
And you don't feel looked after or protected.
Exactly. It's horrible.
Shoaib, thank you so much for coming in to highlight this problem. You've been to Westminster and we'll follow this story. Let us know how you get on. We'll keep in touch.
I really hope so.
Thank you very much for coming in to talk to us, Shoaib Anwan, their founder of Trades United, fighting to get their voice heard and better protection for tradespeople and their equipment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, the Education Secretary has defended plans to overhaul school inspections following the death of Ruth Perry, the head teacher who took her own life after her school was downgraded after an Ofsted inspection. Single-word judgments have now been scrapped, replaced instead with a report card system. But unions have called these changes bewildering, and Ms Perry's sister has called them dangerous. Our education correspondent Anjam Pirbagos reports.
The new government pledged that improving schools would be a priority, breaking down the barriers to opportunity, raising standards across the country. And they'll want changes to Ofsted to be a major step towards that. Ofsted previously graded schools using a simpler system, as outstanding, good, requires improvement, or inadequate. The new format will grade schools in 8 areas, from achievement to curriculum to attendance, using a colour-coded 5-step scale from causing concern to exemplary. Single-phrase grades were scrapped after the death of head teacher Ruth Perry in 2023, after an Ofsted inspection downgraded her school from outstanding to inadequate. The coroner found the inspection contributed to her death. Some teachers are concerned lessons haven't been learned.
I don't see anything that I've read this morning that is going to reduce stress, reduce workload or reduce pressure. To jump from single-word judgments to just different single-word judgments across a whole different range of categories, I think is not a step in the right direction.
We've spoken to teachers who say that the big listen has not resulted in Ofsted listening at all, and actually they've lost faith in the system. Ruth Perry's sister has said that this system and this proposal is a dangerous rehash of what was previously in existence, which resulted in the tragic death of her sister.
What are you really good at?
For the Education Secretary, the changes are key to driving up teaching standards.
I just fundamentally reject this idea that somehow providing more information, shining a light on areas where there is a need for improvement, but also where there is excellence, is somehow not something that parents want when all the evidence is clear that they do.
Parents we spoke to said they liked the detail.
I think they're quite good. It's anything that provides more information. Sometimes the Ofsted reports previously were either overwhelming or just reductive.
As a parent, it breaks it down a lot easier. Teachers know what they're looking for when they're looking at it, and other teaching professionals. But if a parent's point of view, you might not know how to break it down and what the areas are.
Now, the start of a 12-week consultation period as teachers, parents and politicians work out whether the proposed changes will get the right results. Anjum Bakos, Sky News.
Still to come on the UK tonight, I'll be speaking to the man with Parkinson's who says he feels like he's been cured thanks to a groundbreaking new treatment. And Scotland's First Minister insists he is not considering a ban on pet cats. We'll bring you the details. The boss of GB Energy has told Sky News that the public shouldn't expect immediate results from Sir Keir Starmer's flagship green initiative. Labour made the company one of its election pledges, saying it could cut energy bills by as much as £300. But in his first broadcast interview, Jürgen Meyer told us it's a very long-term project spanning decades. Our Scotland correspondent Conor Gillis reports.
In this city, they know change is coming. Once Europe's oil capital, Aberdeen is a place pivoting, now home to GB Energy, the government's flagship green idea.
Never heard of it. Oh, yeah, no, sorry, the new government agency, yes.
I haven't heard anything about that, mate, sorry.
It's a good thing it's coming, but it's overhyped and it'll never deliver what the government said.
It's a good thing. It's better than not coming. And we are supposed to be the oil capital.
And that is why it's here. GB Energy won't supply electricity to consumers, instead owning and managing renewable energy projects. The government trying to lure investors to join in.
This big pitch from Labour has been mired in confusion. There are promises to save tens of billions of pounds for households, to slash energy bills and create thousands of jobs. But there are questions here in a nervous Aberdeen about what delivery looks like. Nice to meet you. I'm Connor from Sky News.
And with 1,000 GB Energy jobs pledged, here is the man tasked with making it happen. In this, his first TV interview.
Great British Energy itself is going to create, over the next 5 years, 200 or 300 jobs in Aberdeen. That will be the size of our team. But look, that is...
They were promised 1,000.
Look, and I said, in the very long term, as we become a major energy champion, it may be many more than that.
What's the very long term?
Well, look, we grow these companies. Energy companies grow over 10, 20 years, and we're going to be around in 20 years as a British energy champion.
So it could take 20 years to get 1,000 jobs?
Look, but the issue that you're completely missing here is the thousands of jobs that are being created in the supply chain.
Off the Aberdeen coast, a glimpse of a transition already underway, as business bosses question the pace of this new project.
200,000 people in the UK are employed in the energy sector. About a quarter of those are just in this region alone. What we have got visibility of is it's probably not as much progress as anybody would have liked. I think we're really looking over the next few months for that to be delivered on.
If you look at how many jobs we think are going to go, particularly in the North East, you know, if GB Energy does not pick up the pace and start to, you know, move workers in there and start to create proper green jobs, then I'm afraid we could be looking at a desolation of the North East.
But these are early days. Billions of pounds of public money is being pumped in. Yet the boss cannot say when consumer energy bills will finally come down. Conor Gillis, Sky News, Aberdeen.
Scotland's First Minister says he has no intention of banning domestic cats. It comes after the government said it would fully consider a report from Scottish Animal Welfare Commission which suggested the pets could be banned from areas where endangered species live, or their owners could be forced to keep them indoors. Well, Emma Birchley is here, and I must admit, this has possibly been the most bizarre headline of the day. Scotland to ban cats. House cats. Where did it come from?
Right.
What's behind this?
So that independent body you just mentioned, the SAWC, came up with a report, gave it to the Scottish Government, wanted them to consider their concerns, which are that, by their estimates, up to 700 million animals are killed every year in the UK by cats. So some people might be pleased that mice and rats are kept under control, but there are other mammals too. There are reptiles and, of course, garden birds. And there's been a real focus, hasn't there, on the number of garden birds that are killed by pets. Also concern about wild cat populations, where there's interbreeding, there's competition for food, the risk of disease in Scotland. So what this report talked about was containment areas. We're talking about cat curfews after dark, no midnight manoeuvres, keeping them indoors, or actually even bans altogether. For example, if maybe a new housing development in a rural area, a particularly vulnerable area was planned, maybe saying you can't have cats at all. So they were all the things that were included in this report. Now, over the weekend, Scottish Government says, right, we're going to look at all these recommendations. Everyone's sent into a tailspin, as you can expect. But don't panic, because this is what Scotland's First Minister had to say today.
Does your government dislike cats?
No.
and we have absolutely no intention of banning cats.
Can you clarifying? You're not considering an option to ban them in certain parts of Scotland to protect wildlife?
There's no way that's going to happen.
But why then did a statement come from your government saying it was considering all options?
Well, let's just say that there was some holding lines put out at the weekend, but I'm telling you today, we're not going to be doing that.
Will you be introducing a curfew in any areas?
Well, let's just say that I'm giving you a very clear statement. We're not going to be doing that.
Perhaps somebody had not read to the bottom of the list of recommendations, but Scotland, no way banning house cats. However, I was just looking at some of the footage we were running of the cute kitties there before, and there was one on a lead, which leads me to my next question. There are some other countries that have brought in strict rules to protect local wildlife.
Yeah, it's true. So Australia, for example, certain states, in certain areas within those states, there are these curfews in place, complete restrictions, 24/7 restrictions in some areas, or you might be allowed to take your feline potential felon out on a lead. Or have an enclosure in your garden. There you go, there's an enclosure in the garden. So they are options. Now, as far as the Cats Protection, this charity is concerned, you know, this isn't on. Cats need to be able to display their natural behaviours. That means lapping up all the sights and sounds, being able to climb, roam, and that this shouldn't happen. But it does appear that this potential catastrophe has been averted. They're all in there.
I'm going to have to rewind back and see how many puns you got in there. Do pun bingo. Rewind. OK, Emma, thank you, Emma Birchley, with that story out of Scotland. Still come on the programme tonight. It's transfer deadline day, just a few more hours to go. Pep Guardiola in need of a boost. There's news of a potential deal at Manchester City on the way for you. And I'm going to speak to the pub landlady who offered punters a free pint every time Nottingham Forest scored at the weekend. The team only went and won 7-0.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live.
I'm live in Jerusalem.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place and all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
I'm James Matthews and I'm Sky's US correspondent, based here in Washington, D.C. Do you fear a fourth indictment? Is it a draw? Does your government owe an apology to the British home children?
Great to see you.
Does your government owe them an apology? The fact that they were intercepted, does that indicate a military weakness on the part of Iran? No. Free, wherever you get your news. There's no doubting the strength of this hurricane as it roars through. You can feel a devastating power. It had been a difficult night in a deadly storm.
Bang, bang. You can hear it hitting the windows.
Our houses are okay.
It's depressing. As bad as all of this is, it could have been much worse. Today, this land they call sacred is at the heart of America's electric car revolution.
To me, it's a sacred ground.
The white gold rush is a race that Biden doesn't want to lose. I've covered some of the biggest stories in the world. Donald Trump, 45th President of the United States, it would appear is about to learn his fate.
Escort coming out!
San Quentin houses America's largest death row. They rarely allow cameras onto the condemned block.
James Matthews, Sky News. I want to be treated equally like everyone else.
It's one step closer to getting out, to getting off death row.
Sky News. Get the full story first. Mr. Trump, James Matthews from Sky News.
Hey, James.
You're diminished by claims that you're a racist.
Question?
Mr. Musk, has your ignorance and ego cost Ukrainian lives? Vladimir Putin calls you outstanding. What do you call him, sir?
He's from Sky News. He's entitled to ask me questions.
Welcome back. Coming up, the pub in Nottinghamshire that scored a bit of an own goal with their free pint promotion. But first, Chris is here with the sport. And happy transfer deadline day.
It's a big day.
Yeah.
It is a big day over at Sky Sports News.
It's like one of the biggest days of the year. You know, it eases the pain of Christmas being over, well, depending on what side of the transfer you're on, I guess. What are we expecting today? Because how many hours have we got left? Have we got a
what time are we on now? We're on 8:44, so we've got 2 hours 50. Why haven't you got the countdown? You've got the branding, the yellow branding. Look at that, there's a gift for you.
Oh.
Sky Sports News, Transfer Deadline Day bingo.
I was just talking about...
Some of the phrases that come up on Transfer Deadline Day. Jim White used to do it so well, didn't he? The window slams shut, he used to say many times.
Can I circle that one off, because you've said it?
OK, you can circle that one off. So, some big late deals. I think Tottenham fans, Manchester City fans will keep a keen eye on us on Sky News, but also on Sky Sports News, because there's a couple of deals that could go right to the wire on your bingo card there.
So Tottenham down to the wire, but I'll let you have that one.
OK, thank you. Tottenham finalising a move for Bayern Munich's France under-21 forward Matisse Tell. Talented young guy, but it's a curious one, this, because on Friday he told them he wasn't interested. He didn't want to come to Tottenham.
Hard to get.
This is now Monday, it's deadline day. Everyone gets a little bit nervous, and all of a sudden he wants to come again. So they're finalising that deal, and it's looking like it could be a loan with an obligation to buy. If you look bottom right of your bingo card, you can tick that one off there. That means that Tottenham would have to buy him in the summer. That's what Bayern Munich want. As for Manchester City, they were thrashed yesterday by Arsenal, weren't they? And they've got this huge hole in their midfield where Rodri, who is so good, is out for the season injured. So they've gone into the market. They're trying to sign Nico Gonzalez, who's a young Spaniard midfielder from Porto. He's been left out of the Porto squad for their game tonight, so it suggests that the transfer is likely to happen, but it's a £50 million release clause for Nico Gonzalez. As for the big winners in the window, Aston Villa, yesterday they signed Marcus Rashford.
Yeah, that was an interesting one, wasn't it?
So we all know Marcus Rashford plays for England. Today, they've brought in another attacker, a Spaniard who's won the Champions League 3 times, Marco Asensio from Paris Saint-Germain. A week ago, they sold their hotshot young striker, John Duran, but they made 60 million from that. They've loaned Rashford, they've loaned Marco Asensio. I think that's really, really good business from them.
Are there any sort of clubs that are going to, you know, have the window slammed shut and not have done the business they want? Who's been looking around and sort of not got what they want or what they needed?
Well, I don't know
the fans are really
not
hot
got what they want.
it.
I think Arsenal fans would like a striker. I don't think they're going to get anyone when the window slams shut. Tick that one off. And the other one that is so curious, Liverpool, top of the league, they've signed no one. They look so comfortable without having to add to their team.
Oh, you mentioned Marcus Rashford. That's on the bingo list.
There you go. So we
you haven't said
get
Sky Sources. You haven't said Sky Sources. Because we always attribute a bit of information to Sky Sources.
You can have me as your Sky source tonight.
OK, I'll have
be
that
your
one.
Sky source.
Did all right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Show the bingo card.
Got
Come on.
6. I did all right there. Not quite full house. We were missing. The clock is ticking. Considering a move. Oh, unbelievable. It's one of my favourites.
Cammy. Unbelievable, Jeff. Oh. Well, I tell you what. For transfers, then, that is a done deal.
Yeah.
But there's still, like I say, 2 hours and, 15 minutes left for the deals to come in. Yeah. There are a couple of others that have gone on. So Newcastle United signed a defender, England under-21 from Bournemouth in the summer, Lloyd Kelly. Yeah. And he hasn't really settled. He's had injuries. He has signed for Juventus. So the latest in a long line of young English talent and slightly older English talent with Kyle Walker going to AC Milan that have decided to up sticks and go and play in Italy.
Chris, how much money are we talking about in this window? Because I feel like the January transfer window gets bigger. There was a few years where it was a bit of a damp squib, but it's just got bigger over recent years. So how much money is floating around?
Not as much as you might have thought in previous years. A lot of clubs haven't spent the money. The one club that have spent an awful lot of money is Manchester City, because they're obviously chasing their tail. They're not where they want to be. And if they do sign Nico Gonzalez, that'll be another 50 million. It'll take them towards, I think, 180 in the window, which is quite a spend. OK,
I've been talking to you and I haven't been concentrating on what's on the screen, because for me to complete this card, we need shots of a player at an airport. Can my director confirm whether we ran any of that? No?
That's my fault. I didn't provide the shots for the editors. My apologies to everybody.
Cheated, didn't win. What else is happening?
Maybe next time. We didn't win bingo. You never win. Don't gamble, kids. Now, away from the transfer deadline day, there are a couple of important matches taking place tonight. Chelsea in the Premier League. Their old manager, Graham Potter, is up against it, against his old club with his new side, West Ham, at Stamford Bridge.
Staying connected is vital for business. Sky Business sponsors this report.
The end of a playing career doesn't always mean the end of a journey in football. Tom Reynolds took a completely different route.
I joined Charlton Athletic at the age of 9 and then stayed there for 3 seasons and left around 12. And then the next year I Joined West Ham, played just for 1 season and then got released. It wasn't a tough release, it was just basically you're not good enough, and that was fine. I'd played football for 10 years. I wanted to use that knowledge and go into something, and everyone that weren't making it as footballers were going into coaching and going into managers or physiotherapists, and for me it was a case that I was like, there must be something else.
From Reading and Charlton to working in analytics, then on to Russia with Lokomotiv Moscow and Germany with Eintracht Frankfurt. Tom has spent over a decade behind the scenes in football.
At the time, I'd never heard of performance analysis. It was only until I went to university that I knew that was an avenue. Performance analysis can lead to 5, 6, 7 different roles now.
Do you ever now miss playing?
Yeah, I think I still find it where I'm talking to a player or I'm talking to a coach where players are around and you see them going out on the football pitch and you're the one dragging the equipment or setting up the equipment, and you're like, just want to put my boots on and get involved again. But I mean, there's a reason as to why I didn't become a professional footballer, and that was because I wasn't good.
Sky Business sponsors this report.
Still reeling from not winning at bingo. Right, let's stay with a bit of football, shall we? And a pub in Nottinghamshire scored a bit of an own goal at the weekend. They had a promotion on that offered punters a free pint every time Nottingham Forest scored in their game against Brighton. The Gedling Inn came up with the idea to spread the word after they started showing local Premier League games at their venue. But it backfired a little bit. The pub left pouring pints non-stop after Forest thrashed Brighton 7-0, with almost 300 free beers handed out over the course of the game. As you can imagine, that went down pretty well with those at the pub. 7 pints down, looks like. The landlady of the Gedling Inn, Becky Webster, joins me now. Becky, I take it you're not a Forest fan, oh ye of little faith?
No, of course I'm a Forest fan. I knew that they would win, just not by that magnificent number.
I was going to say, people are calling it a bit of an own goal, but actually this has got global attention. You might just be one of the best sort of promotional marketeers we've got in this country.
Yeah, I wanted to get it out there, and I think it's definitely had the right effect.
What was the idea behind it then, Becky?
So, like you said, we just managed to get the games on to manage to show the Forest games, so we wanted to get it out there to the customers. So we just thought we'd put a crazy promotion out and let's give away some free beer. I assumed maybe a couple of pints to each customer. Then we got to 3, 4, 5, and ended up on 7.
What were you thinking as the goals went in?
So for the first 2 goals, I was actually upstairs feeding my daughter and I could hear the cheers downstairs. I thought, OK, at least everyone's happy, they've got a free beer. And then I walked down to the 3rd goal and everybody turned around and laughed at me, basically, because I was giving away all the beer. And, yeah, after that, obviously, it was half-time. So I thought, OK, we're good, we're on 3 beers, everybody's happy. And then it was 4, 5, 6, and, yeah, the rest is history.
Yeah, you can see the scenes there. I can hear the phone going in the background. That's either somebody calling to tell you you're on telly, which you already know, or to make a booking for the next weekend, because are you going to do this again?
Well, the phone's been going off the hook today and everyone keeps asking what we're doing next and what games we're playing. So we've got to do something, but we're just in talks with the team on what we're going to do.
Yeah, in talks with the team. I understand your husband and co-owner knew nothing about this.
He was with my son at the time working on a house that we've just bought, and he was getting loads of messages saying, "You're a legend, well done for putting an offer on," and he didn't have a clue. So he walked in at the 3rd goal and was a bit shocked.
So estimating about 300 pints. I mean, could the staff keep up with the demand, and could the drinkers keep up with the drinking?
The staff did amazing just to turn it around. We only did it an hour before the game, so they adapted really well. It was a busy shift, but I think they had fun with it, and everybody was in such good spirits. It was like as if England had won the World Cup.
Yeah. Well, Becky, certainly put you on the map, Nottinghamshire and further afield. Talk to me about, you know, what it's been like in terms of hospitality over the last couple of years and how sort of attracting this kind of crowd into your pub at weekends to watch sport is a real boost.
Yeah, definitely. It's hard in any trade, but the hospitality trade has been hit really hard, especially since COVID, and with people having less money these days, the things that go first are drinking and maybe going out for food. So it has been hit hard, but we are very lucky. We have a really good following in the area. We have a good community spirit. So, but having football is obviously vital to the pub trade and vital for our weekends and everybody's kind of weekends.
I tell you what, they're going to be queuing around the block this weekend, aren't they? You've got to do something special.
I hope so. Yes, we need to come up with a good plan.
Who have Forest got?
The next game is Newcastle, I think.
Okay. Do you fancy them getting 7 goals against them?
Hopefully not. Well, no, actually, hopefully. Hopefully it might be 8 or 9.
I know, you're torn now,
just
aren't you,
maybe
as a
not with the
Forest
same
fan?
other.
Yeah, you're torn as a Forest
that's
now,
the problem.
fan, aren't you? Between your team winning and your taking a bit of a hit. But hey, look, it's building up your reputation. And the punters are having a good time, and that's what matters, right? Becky, look, thank you so much for coming on to talk to us.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you.
Good luck at the weekend. I'll be looking out for Forest in the results on Sky Sports News. And thinking of you. Becky, thank you so much from the Gedling Inn there in Nottinghamshire. Let's take a quick look at the weather now, shall we? Well, we're in for a brief, mild, wet and windy spell, but it is going to turn drier, calmer and colder from Wednesday. England and Wales looking mainly fine for this evening, but it will be windy elsewhere, with coastal gales and rain in places prolonged in the far northwest. Scotland, Ireland and Northern Ireland will see persistent and locally heavy rain, strong winds and coastal gales spreading in overnight, with clearer skies and showers following to the northwest. And the Princess of Wales has released a photograph today of herself to mark World Cancer Day. It was taken by her son, Prince Louis. Well, World Cancer Day is tomorrow. And in a social media post alongside the image, Kate wrote this: "Don't forget to nurture all that which lies beyond the disease." Kate is continuing to make a gradual return to royal duties after completing her own cancer treatment last summer. That's all from the UK Tonight. We'll be back tomorrow night at 8.